I've been writing as a journalist since I was in high school, where I had a magazine, or you might call fanzine, called Carnage. And I've been reviewing movies, books, writing short stories since 1984. So you figure that's quite a long time. After that, I wrote some articles when I was in the military for the local paper when I was in Germany. I also continued Carnage while I was over in Germany as well. I started writing for a magazine called Guitar 2001, and I was a senior writer for Guitar 2001. So I wrote hundreds of guitar reviews and heavy metal and hard rock, interviewed guitar players like Buckethead, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, etc. Then I wrote for a magazine called Shockwave Magazine, which was put out by Starlog, who put out Fangoria as well as Starlog. And I wrote for Metal Edge. There was a magazine, actually a website called fearsmag.com. And I was the first person to start doing DVD reviews. I reviewed even VHS at that time. And then after that, I decided to write for my own website, which is mantaraypictures.com. I've been writing reviews for about 20 years on my website. At this point, I've written thousands of reviews, concerts, books, movies, you name it. I decided to do this on video the first time ever for my YouTube channel. So this is a new function that I'll probably use every once in a while. And in this case, there was a book that really warranted it. There's a book that just came out called Assault on the System, the Nonconformist Cinema of John Carpenter. It's written by Troy Howarth. I gotta say, I've been a devoted fan of John Carpenter's since he released Halloween back in 1978. His October holiday theme masterpiece really changed my life. I started following him so closely. I've read books, magazines, VHS tapes, Laserdisc, DVDs, and Blu-ray over the years. In terms of books, there's been some really good ones that I've read that I would highly recommend. Order in the Universe, the films of John Carpenter, written by Robert C. Kumbaugh. I think that might have been the first one I read. The Films of John Carpenter, written by John Kenneth Muir, another excellent book. John Carpenter, The Prince of Darkness by Giles Bullinger. That was kind of an academic one. And then The Cinema of John Carpenter, The Technique of Terror, which is part of the director's series. And that was edited by Ian Conrad and David Woods. Had a lot of different writers that contributed from different universities and such. And of course, the excellent On the Set with John Carpenter, written the photographs of Kim Gottlieb Walker. That was a really interesting book for me because over the years, I had found out she had shot photos as a still photographer on a bunch of Carpenter's films. I'd even requested, could she make a book? Obviously, it wasn't because of me, but she said she was going to try to do that and eventually did. And that's just a beautiful, handsome, whatever words you want to describe, gorgeous photos. Escape from New York, The Fog, Halloween, Halloween 2. It's a beautiful book. I totally recommend getting it because it really captures that history of those movies in a photographic way. But because of all these worthwhile tomes, when I found out there was a new book about John Carpenter, I was truly kind of a little apprehensive because I didn't know what someone else could say that hadn't already been done in the books that came before it. In my opinion, there's really no reason to have a competition between books because, to be truthful, they're all good because they celebrate John Carpenter. I think the more books about him, the better. With that being said, Assault on the System, the Nonconformist Cinema of John Carpenter, is the best book I've read so far about the man who immortalized Napoleon Wilson, Laurie Strode, Dr. Loomis, Michael Myers, Blake the Leper, Snake Plissken, The Thing, Arnie Cunningham, Buddy Repperton, and Christine on the screen, Jenny Hayden and Starman, Jack Burton and Lopan, and George Nada, to name just a few. Author Troy Howarth brings two extraordinary things to this book that makes Assault on the System stand out. Howarth has compiled a staggering amount of information that's just simply amazing. I learned new details about some of the projects that Carpenter was going to do at one point that never happened, that I had never heard about from any other source over the last 40 years. The other aspect of Howarth is his gift of writing. He writes with clear, fluid, almost conversational style that's both informative and entertaining. He exerts passion and emotion into his choice of word, and that makes you want to keep reading the book. I have a problem when a scholarly author writes with too much of an academic slant because it kind of makes the reading not as fun. Because this book is more recent than some of the other books I mentioned, it has the advantage of covering all the films, TV, cable TV, music recordings, soundtracks, and even live performance that Carpenter has done to date. Even mentions comic books and such too as well. Something I also appreciated that the author did was he was critical enough to give his opinion weight. Sometimes I find journalists can be too negative or they can be too positive. So it's kind of nice when someone has a balance. And he explains the reasons why he feels the way he does on both. But he's definitely not out to attack Carpenter. And the truth is, John Carpenter hasn't really got his just due in the critical world over his whole career. Obviously, there's people like myself and Mr. Howarth who love his work. He hasn't always got what he deserved, I think. Another thing that will surprise you is how packed this book is. When you hold it in your hands, it doesn't feel like it's over 400 pages, but it actually is. It's about 463, I believe. Retails about $34.95, something like that. It's totally worth it. Howarth also smartly includes an assortment of essays from other writers who give their distinct praise about a variety of subjects in relation to John Carpenter. It could be his movies, his TV, his soundtracks, his comic books, etc. And that's really cool because it gives a contrast to his opinion and helps you look at his work maybe in a way that you might not even think of yourself. To make this book even better, there's interviews with John Carpenter, Sandy King Carpenter, Keith Gordon, and Alan Howarth. Each person gives very candid, open answers to the questions that Troy Howarth asks. You should have a lot of fun reading that. Keith Gordon even goes into Brian De Palma when he was making Dress to Kill at home movies. So if you're a casual fan, a John Carpenter fanatic, a lover of the cinema, or just an avid reader, I think it'd be wise to pick up all the books I talked about. But I would, however, make it a priority to get Assault on the System, the Nonconformist Cinema of John Carpenter, because it's the best of the bunch. You can purchase this book on Amazon or go to the Facebook page to find out more about this essential published work. Trust me, you're going to love it.